Welcome to This Explainer. Think about this for a second. Research consistently tells us that right after a great teacher, a great principal is the second most important factor in a student's academic success. It's huge. The person sitting in that main office has this exponential impact on literally every single child in the building. And yet, for decades, we've kind of clung to this outdated, almost cinematic stereotype of what that role is actually supposed to be. Well, today, we're going to completely dismantle that stereotype. We're using Michael Fullan's visionary framework from his acclaimed book, The Principal, to explore exactly why so many traditional school leadership models just fall flat. And more importantly, we'll see how redefining this one single role is the absolute key to transforming student success and accelerating teacher growth. So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 6 key areas: the old school myth, leading from the classroom, why culture beats rules beyond rote memorization, creating future leaders, and finally, the future of leadership. Let's jump right in. Starting with section 1, the old school myth. We all know that classic stereotypical image of the principal's office, right? Traditionally, the principal has been treated as a pure manager. You know the type, perpetually bogged down by endless paperwork, acting as the ultimate disciplinarian, and basically tethered to their desk just to make sure the building's logistics run on time. They manage the facility, sure, but they aren't necessarily advancing the learning. Fullan presents a radically different vision: the learning leader. This role is infinitely more dynamic. Instead of just managing the building, these leaders are out in the halls. They're actively mentoring young teachers, they're initiating meaningful change, and they act as the true engine of the school's culture. Our modern schools desperately need these kinds of true leaders who actually drive educational excellence, not just administrative managers whose main goal is keeping the lights on and the hallways quiet. That takes us right into section 2, leading from the classroom. It is time to get out from behind that desk. The big paradigm shift here is that a principal shouldn't just supervise learning from afar. They have to personally lead it. Great principals stay deeply connected to the everyday realities of classroom teaching, student engagement, teacher development, and instructional quality. And honestly, you simply cannot impact those areas if you're isolated in an office all day. Effective principals are constantly visiting classrooms to see what real learning looks like on the ground. And I don't mean standing rigidly in the back of the room with a clipboard doing a formal evaluation. It means pulling up a chair, sitting with the students, asking them what they're working on, and truly understanding the daily challenges their teachers face. That firsthand, boots-on-the-ground knowledge is exactly what allows a principal to provide meaningful support instead of just handing down disconnected directives. Moving on to section 3, why culture beats rules. Let's look at the invisible fabric that holds a great school together. Think about the power dynamic in a typical staff room. In a control-based school, everything is driven by fear, obedience, and isolation. Even a phenomenal teacher can't transform a school on their own if they're trapped in an isolated silo, too afraid to share their struggles or try something new. A principal who only controls people might get short-term obedience, but that is the absolute ceiling of their success. Now, contrast that with a development-based school. This environment's built fundamentally on respect, trust, support, and collaboration. When a principal focuses on developing people and building systems where teachers actually learn from one another, like through regular peer-to-peer observations, they create long-term sustainable excellence. They're weaving together teachers, administrators, and parents into one unified team. And this brings us to Fullan's core mantra, which is absolutely crucial: culture beats rules. It's a simple phrase, but it's incredibly profound. Think about it in the context of any normal workplace. You could have the thickest, most meticulously crafted rulebook in the world, but if the underlying culture is toxic, the whole organization is eventually going to fail. Relationships, trust, and collaborative systems are always going to outperform strict authority. Teachers, just like students, perform at their very best when they feel respected and supported enough to take creative risks, not when they're just being managed by fear or compliance. Let's look at how this impacts the curriculum in section 4, beyond rote memorization. We all know education is changing at breakneck speed, and the classroom experience has to keep up. This is where deep learning comes in. It's a massive shift away from silent note copying, excessive standardized testing, and passive classrooms. Instead, deep learning actively develops critical thinking, creativity, communication, and real problem solving. Think about the difference between a traditional classroom where success just means memorizing dates for a multiple-choice test versus a deep learning classroom where students are passionately debating a historical event to propose a solution for a modern community issue. To foster that kind of dynamic environment, a principal absolutely must champion active participation and create a safe space for teachers to innovate. Which naturally leads us to a really common question today. If we want this modern, deep learning, is dropping the latest technology into the classroom the silver bullet? Does just bringing computers into schools automatically fix education? According to Fullan, the answer is a resounding no. Technology is a tool, it is not an automatic solution. It really only works when teaching methods improve right alongside it. Students need to be actively engaged in problem solving, not just passively staring at a new type of glowing screen. And teachers need proper guidance on how to integrate these tools pedagogically. Without strong leadership, technology just becomes an expensive decoration. Seriously, it's incredibly easy to buy a cart full of tablets, hand them out, and watch them become nothing more than $500 digital flashcards. Real transformation requires a learning leader to actually guide the educational strategy, not just sign the purchase order. That leads us perfectly into Section 5, Creating Future Leaders, which might just be the most important part of a principal's job. The ultimate sign of a truly great leader isn't hoarding all the power for themselves, it's actually giving it away. It starts with empowering teachers and delegating meaningful responsibility. And I don't mean just offloading administrative busywork, I mean giving them real ownership over the curriculum and the school climate. When you encourage that level of initiative, you are actively developing leadership in others. One of the absolute strongest ideas here is that a great principal creates more leaders. Instead of controlling everything and becoming a bottleneck for every single decision, they act as a multiplier. By systematically sharing leadership, they make the entire school stronger, more resilient, and way more capable of sustaining success long after that principal eventually moves on to their next role. Let's pull all of these threads together in our final segment. Section 6, The Future of Leadership. When we strip away the old myths of the strict disciplinarian and the paperwork manager, we're left with this incredibly powerful new archetype. The future principal is a learning leader, a culture builder, a mentor, and a relentless agent of change. Operating this way completely redefines our expectations for school administrators. And the ripple effect of this shift is just massive. Teacher burnout drops dramatically, student engagement completely soars, and the entire surrounding community gets to benefit from a thriving, vibrant school ecosystem. At the end of the day, a school's success relies far less on the shiny newness of its building and almost entirely on the quality, empathy, and vision of the leadership inside of it. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to reflect on for your own community, or maybe even your own leadership journey. What makes a truly great principal in your eyes? Now that we've walked through Fullan's framework, putting culture over rules, deep learning over memorization, and shared leadership over top-down control, how does your view of educational leadership change? Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep seeking out those insights that challenge the way we think.